Hi Vicky, hi Bee, welcome onto the HMO podcast.
Hi,
Hi,
Andy.
Andy. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
having us.
us.
It's great to have you here. Now, I know you guys really well because you're members of the HMO Mastermind. I've got a really great insight into your business, and I'm sure lots of our listeners know about you as well because you're really active on social media. But perhaps for some of our listeners who aren't that familiar with you guys, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and the BV business?
Yeah, sure. So thanks again for having us on the podcast. A pleasure to be here. And yeah, we're BV Properties. I'm Vicky, and Bee's
Can
on the
be.
line as well. She's in France, so we're doing a bit of an international podcast today, which is exciting. And we started BV Property just under 3 years ago now. After spending about a year doing training, so we got into property probably like a lot of people through the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Read that book. Yeah, a lot of light bulb moments of, how we can create a business through property. And we spent a year or so learning, and then yeah, we created our own business.
Yeah. Just to add on that, we partners in business, but in life as well. So it's not just BV properties,
Yeah,
BV home life too.
absolutely. And I can tell all of our listeners that you guys are great fun as well because we went out for our mastermind social recently and you guys were a whole lot of laugh to be hanging out with after the mastermind as well. We had a good time, didn't we?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun.
So, absolutely. So, B, you're in France at the minute. Vicky, you're back at home. And, you guys are quite active, but in different areas of the country. So, I think what's really interesting about your business model, and something that I don't see that often, is that you invest in different areas of the country. And this is a really active part of your strategy, isn't it? So, why is that, guys? And can you tell us a little bit about how you're making that work at the minute?
Yeah, well, that's. I think it wasn't meant to be at the beginning that we were going in different areas in the country. The main focus was always to be in Birmingham because Vicky's from Birmingham, so we kind of knew the area. And then we just followed different opportunities that we had that came up in different areas. So we got Barnsley, we got Peterborough, and now we got Bristol. And thinking about it, I mean, everything happens for a reason, and this really happens for a reason because it made us realize as well that we de-risk the portfolio and the business by having different areas because in different places the deals they don't work the same. So that's how it happened. So it wasn't meant to be, but it works really well for us, I think.
Yeah, so you guys have different types of properties, and you also have different. You have these properties in different locations as well. So actually, like you say, B, your portfolio is quite diversified, and you've really spread that risk, haven't you? And what is your ultimate objective? What is it that you're trying to do with the BV business? Because it isn't just HMOs, is it?
Yeah, so I guess the ultimate outcome and really why we also invest in different areas is that our ultimate goal is to live in France. So obviously Bee's French. We met in France when I was working there, working in Paris, and we've kind of got the kind of outcome to go back. Bee's also retrained to be a winemaker, so we've got kind of the outcome of potentially a little vineyard somewhere in France to spend our days, raise our family, and everything. So we've kind of got that as the ultimate objective, and we've kind of built the business around that by always from the beginning knowing that we may not physically be in the UK.
Yeah.
So we need the business to run
Yeah.
without us having to physically be here. So at the beginning, we obviously did everything ourselves. So our very first project, it was in Nuneaton in the Midlands. We were still living in Brighton at the time, so we were traveling up pretty much every weekend, getting build quotes, and then builders wouldn't show up, and then we go, oh my God, what are we doing? So it was really hands-on at the beginning. So we really learned the ropes, and essentially what we'd been taught, kind of the way to do it. And we kind of realized pretty quickly that it wasn't sustainable. Even just living down in Brighton and having our portfolio in the Midlands, we needed people that we trusted on site. So we've really been the last 3 years building a team of whether that be builders, or management agents, or more recently JVs who are based locally that will do the kind of groundwork, so that our outcome really is that we can be minimally kind of physically there.
So I think this is so interesting. First of all, love the vision. I can picture myself living in France, and I think that actually is so important. It's a really good share because I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I see a lot of people getting into property, especially HMOs, because they like the idea of cash flow, generating cash flow. It's a good asset in that sense, but it isn't as easy as a lot of people think. And I think there's got to be more to the objective than simply generating cash, because I think, and I know from I've got other businesses as well, it's much easier to build certain types of businesses and generate the equivalent amount of cash that you might do from an asset like a HMO. Okay, maybe that HMO will appreciate in value, but it's a really tough business model. So I think having that objective and that vision board like you guys have is so important, because for me that is the thing that keeps you motivated. It keeps you enthused about what you're doing. It's what helps you get through the really difficult times. And I know working with you guys, there's been lots of challenges on the way. And your model, the model that you've just outlined, this model, working with different people, different areas of the country, different types of properties, it is not a straightforward model. You've got to figure out who the people that you can trust and rely on are. You've got to get to know all these different areas. So was there a strategy behind this for you guys? How did you go about manifesting this? Was it one property in one location at a time, or did you divide the responsibilities and take different areas of the country, or is it something that's just sort of happened organically?
Yeah, I guess it can it kind of happen organically, but at the same time, we were really clear on what our strengths were. So I think for us, the most important things is to work with people where the match works. So for us, going on site and following the build is not necessarily what we're doing. Usually now our role is more about the finances. Vicky is actually responsible for all of the purchasing phase, refinancing, all of that. I do quite a lot of the design, if not all of it, depending on the partnership. But it's very key for us to really understand what are the strengths of the people we're working with and what are their weakness or point that are not the best. And the same for us, because if we don't have that very clear at the beginning, everyone is kind of trying to do everything, or everyone is avoiding doing one thing that actually needs to be done. So I guess that's really the key.
I know this is something that we've talked about over the last year, isn't it? The way that you can almost implement your business into different areas and work with the right people. And more recently, you've actually partnered with some of the guys from the mastermind as well, which is great to see. But obviously, even that relationship is one that's taken quite a bit of time. So I put a huge amount of value on my network and my business partners, and I really don't rush into partnerships at all. How have you guys gone about this? How have you found the right people to work with? And what sort of challenges have you come up against just in that process, and not necessarily just working with different people, but actually trying to find the right people to work with and making it happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's really a people game as well, property. It's not about the property and, getting it tenanted. That's all the mechanics of it. That's what you have to do to have a good property business. But the main challenges that come up and the main benefits of it as well is the partnerships that you create and the people that you work with. Because almost, I would say, 90% of challenges is people, if not a higher percentage than that. It's people, it's the team, it's either the builders, it's the valuers, it's the solicitors, it's the tenants, it's your JV partners. It always relates somehow to the team, and the communication and how you work together. Do you share the same values? So it's something that we've learned kind of along the way. We've entered into quite a few JV partnerships because that was the way that we could grow our business. Again, as Bee said about the strengths and weaknesses, one of our kind of weaknesses, or it's not our strength, is finding deals. It's dedicating the time and obviously in the different locations to do that. So we realized quite early that we need help with this. So who can we work with, whether it's sourcing agents or partnering with people in the areas that are good at finding deals. to help us grow our business, and that's really how we've managed to scale quite big, over 14 projects now over the last 3 years, because we've had those partnerships. Obviously, there's ups and downs along the way. It's not that everything definitely does not go smoothly. So if you're expecting that, then yeah,
Wrong business to be in, isn't it? If you think that's the case.
exactly. It's just really what we've really learned and come out with, and that's why, yeah, like, as you mentioned, our most recent JV with Jake and Lucy from the Mastermind. It's really by knowing exactly what we want from a JV partnership, and also what we have to bring as well. I think the more you go into detail and understand how it can be a win-win, and also long term, JVs, not just for Christmas. It's a long-term engagement. It's like a little marriage, if you will. So jumping into certain JV partnerships, has kind of taught us, if we go after the deal specifically, maybe then you're in a partnership where it's not going to grow past that one deal. So what we're looking for now is really a partnership that can grow, to get, to meet the outcomes of both parties in a long term, not just a short term.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating listening to you talk about the way that you approach your partnerships, Vicky. A lot of people, I do think, jump into partnerships too quickly, and like you say, it is a financial relationship, and it can be quite a complicated relationship. And I think focusing on building that relationship first, and making sure that you are the right fit for people, is so important. And I think it's the same whether you're buying a property together or going into business in general with anybody. But I really want to pick up on something that you said earlier, which is about those strengths and weaknesses. And I want to kind of home in on that, because I think that's so important. I know, in fact, it might be quite interesting to hear about, how you guys manage your own strengths and weaknesses. And how, I'm sure, it comes with its own challenges as being partners in life as well, but also prioritizing that and really understanding that from your point of view going into partnerships, I think is so important. So what is it exactly that you guys feel like you bring to your partnerships, in abundance, and what is the gap that you then look for and try and fill with other people?
Yeah, no, I think for us, what was the thing that we bring to the partnership really is the finance mainly, and not necessarily 100%. It could be on a 50% basis, but that's something that we bring. But something more important that usually we don't think of, because it's not a direct contribution, is the organization of how we work together. Because we got different systems in place that we happily share with the people we work with. And this is coming from our background working in Schlumberger in the oil and gas industry, I think, where we got trained to be extremely professional. And that's something that we bring quite a lot in the partnership. What we bring as well is, I guess, I got quite a good eye for design and plans now that I didn't know I had before. And Vicky, I'll let you talk about your part.
Yeah, thanks, Bee. So I guess to add to that, I guess in our partnership as just BeeVee, we have very different roles in terms of, Bee is in charge of all the design, so all the beautiful houses that you see. That's nothing to do with me. That's all Bee. She's really got a great eye for how things go together. And I completely 100% trust her to manage that part of it. She does sometimes consult me on a few things, but I usually make the wrong choice. But no, she's brilliant at that. So anything to do with design, the layouts, really designing the properties for the tenants, that's Bee's realm. As Bee mentioned as well, I'm more on the finance solicitor, what you would call the boring stuff. Is just being able to purchase the properties, really working with a broker solicitor. I actually enjoy that part of it. We've got a really good system now with the team that we've got, and obviously the back end finance, so getting the valuation that we need at the end, and managing all the finances really is my role. We both work with investors. Bee mainly kind of leads that as well. So we've got a great kind of team of, we call them part of our team, our investors, and we just love talking to them. We just love talking to them, interacting with them, and yeah, it's a great bunch of people that have helped us to grow our business, and we've helped them to grow their wealth as well. So yeah, I think in terms of the roles that we have, it's very complementary. It wasn't like that at the beginning.
No, it wasn't.
It was pretty painful, but
It was tough at the beginning. It was really tough, but now it's
So
clear.
it's really great. You know, it is really fascinating to hear how you approach this, and I think also what's really interesting about your model is that you and I recall back in sort of one of the lockdowns earlier in the year, or even last year, that we had a conversation, and it was about your big picture, your sort of grand plan, and it was creating a certain amount of cash flow, a certain amount of equity, and that would ultimately allow you to kind of get to France and do the things that you wanted to do in France. And we definitely recognise that for you guys to be able to do this at the pace that you wanted to do it, and you've been going at some pace, it was going to rely on all these other people to do these different things. And I think certainly for me, that was when the penny dropped, and I realised that actually your real speciality is in people, and it's bringing finance to the table and raising finance, and you do that really well. And then also finding the people to then place that finance with, who you can work with on deals. So would you say, I mean, do you think that's a fair summary of you guys? I know you've got your individual strengths around, finance and design and things like that, but if you're looking at your whole business, that's certainly how I see that your business has developed and your real strength. Do you think that's sort of a fair summary of kind of the BeeVee business?
Yeah, I think it's very fair, and I think our strength really is to manage the money, actually. Because it's not just raising finance, it's to be able to manage it so we can purchase deals, we can give the money back to our investors, because they're always our top first priority. We go last. If there's nothing left for us, which hopefully doesn't happen, they go first. So our job is to manage finance. That's basically what we do.
So let's talk about this then. You've done 14 deals already. Some of these deals have been huge. You've got one deal that's seven properties, in a row of terrace. And so what sort of finance are you guys raising, and how are you working with that finance to actually construct these sorts of deals? Because I think that's a question that lots of people want to know the answer to. Lots of people are raising finance, not sure how to construct deals, not sure whether they should be sharing equity or paying interest. It's really interesting the way that you guys do it. So, and it's quite a big scale. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So we've raised, I guess in the last few years, we've raised over, kind of £1.3 million now of private investor funds. That's obviously not including all the bank finance that we've raised in terms of bridging and mortgaging, etc. That's just purely the working with our investors. And I think it's just grown by, I guess that we've got like a level of transparency, honesty, and as Bee mentioned before, we really attract the kind of investors that we need. So we really work on like a loan agreement basis. So it's on a debt basis, essentially. We work with all of our investors. We work completely transparent with them. And I guess Bee, do you want to add some more to that?
Yeah, no, I think it's basically what we do, loan agreements, so debt basis. We've got lots of investors reinvesting with us as well on a yearly basis. If we have another deal, we always go to them first to give them the opportunity, because they've been there from the very beginning to support our business, to grow it. So if they want to, keep going, we just ask them first. We're expanding as well our network of investors more and more. On social media now, on people that we didn't necessarily know before as much. But again, Vicky just said it, we always attract the right people, because, don't know, something's going the wavelength or whatever. But the people we work with, it just works, and it's very direct. So we very direct and firm, and they are the same. So if it doesn't work for them, then, it doesn't work for them, and that's fine. But what we need is a win-win. If only one part is winning and not the other one, or if someone is feeling he's or she's not winning, then there's no point to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that transparency that you talk about with investors, it is so important, isn't it? So everybody knows, and you can set expectations. So it sounds like you guys have a number of investors that you work with and you nurture, but perhaps aren't always working with because you don't always have an opportunity for them. But you've agreed fixed rate agreements with those guys, and then you're very transparent. You bring the funding over into your deals, and then you'll do that deal perhaps with another partner who might actually find and then develop out the project. Is that pretty much how your stuff's working? And then ultimately you can pay your investors back. You've got a JV arrangement over here, which is whatever it is, and then there's an amount left over for you guys in terms of equity and cash flow. Is that pretty much your model in a nutshell?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. So yeah, it's the loan agreement basis from our investors. They invest in our business, they invest in BeeVee. And then we invest that funds either in projects that are just purely BeeVee or in our JV companies, which we own a percentage of. So it's always properties that we own as BeeVee, whether it's purely us or in our partnerships that we invest our investors' money in.
Something I want to add on that, because it's quite key. Sorry, Andy, but we got approached by few people to ask us to actually invest our money, to invest for them, like we would be an angel investors, and that's something we don't do, because otherwise we lose control of this money, and we got the trust from our investors. So the money that we got, we don't angel it to anyone else in another deal. It's going either into our JV partnership or just for BeeVee. But it's important for me to say that.
Yeah, so you don't sort of pass on the loan to anybody else for them
Never.
You work with it directly, and you sort of keep your hands on, and you manage it through your partnerships or it's your own project. And I think the project that we're going to have a look at today, your case study, is this a deal that you just did in BeeVee? It's one of your own? Yeah, that's right. But you're also just finishing a huge project, which is, those 7 houses. That's a partnership as well, isn't it? And that's a mega deal, isn't it? I mean, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Go ahead, Vicky. Tell us a little bit more about that one.
So that one's a big one. So we did it with our JV partner, who Claudine. So she bought the deal to us. She was looking for funding. So we kind of did a JV partnership on that one. And it's definitely the most challenging project we've ever done. Obviously 7 houses in a row. They're huge kind of terraced houses up in Barnsley. So they're big old beasts, and we converted them into a mixture of HMOs and flats. So it's like 40 units altogether.
Wow.
And it's been challenging. I mean, we've done the whole thing during COVID pretty much as well, which obviously raises its own challenges. But
being on site as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in different locations. We couldn't actually physically go on site either due to the restrictions. So I mean, it's finished now. We're just coming up to we're putting tenants in, and everything's kind of coming to a close, which is amazing.
Well, I really can't wait to see this project get finished up, and I know there's been challenges along the way, just things like the utility companies and stuff. And I know you guys. Banging your head on the wall. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited to see this one come together.
Well, I think this deal is quite interesting as well, because we went into it a bit naively as well. Like, I think if we look back now, we were not ready for such a big deal. But at the same time, not doing that deal wouldn't take us where we are today. So, sometimes it's quite good to be a bit naive, because if you know too much about the risks and the problem come in, we just don't do it. Obviously, there's a level to not go too crazy, but we learned like 10 years of experience with that deal, so it's worth it.
I think that's so important to say, B, because a lot of people get to that point where all they need to do is actually take the leap and invest, and they struggle, they procrastinate, and some people just don't ever make that leap. They don't make that jump forwards, and I think they've learned into action. And I think in property, there's always a point where you've just got to do it. And I don't know about you, but I've always found that so long as I've been able to contain the risks and had a contingency in place, where things have gone well, that's where the most growth in my businesses or personal development has always been. And yes, they've been very challenging, but actually I always look back, sometimes maybe with a little less hair, but quite fondly on those challenges, because that's what keeps me excited, interested in property. That's actually why I love doing this and not doing what I used to do as a physio. Do you guys feel the same about that?
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of, I personally kind of enjoy the challenges as well. Obviously, when it gets very stressful, it's not comfortable. However, it kind of almost shows you what you can handle.
Yeah.
It's a good example because if you're always staying to, the things that you know and the stuff that's comfortable, you never really figure out how much you can handle. And I think for me, this project just taught us that we can handle a lot. We can handle a lot. At times, it got too much for sure. Um, but we know what we're capable of, I think is what it showed us. And I think, as B said, jumping in, yes, sometimes it's a bit naive. Sometimes you're going to get, some sleepless nights. However, we've handled it. So we know that, our business is strong. We're strong as a team. We did absolutely whatever it took to get that project finished, and we've done it. So I think, yeah, I think the whole team, we're all proud of the outcome, and how we managed to handle it in the end.
I think it also helped us understanding who we were as a person, not just as a business. But for example, Vicky and I, we are completely different in terms of what we can do, what is fulfilling us as well. And this particular deal really made us realize that I need to play more than Vicky, for example. Otherwise, I go mental. And before, I was just, fighting it and trying to work constantly. And the result of that was just like misery. It was not fun at all. And then when I started to actually take a break, play a little bit, and come back, everything changed. But we needed to go through that to understand it. Otherwise, maybe it would have taken 20 years to understand that. Instead, it took us 18 months. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that is so cool. And I think I found that myself over the years as well. And even just in the last 12 months, COVID changed the way that some of my businesses looked and operated, and actually that pushed me to do some different things. And I set myself some huge challenges. There were lots of obstacles to overcome, and I realized actually there was stuff out there that I really enjoyed that I wasn't aware of, and other strengths that I had, and some other limitations that I had. I got pushed back on a few things and didn't, some of it didn't come off. So I think it's really important to test ourselves, isn't it? And I think that's one of the best things about business. It's the whole experience, or call it journey if you like. But I think you've got to be really enjoying the process of doing all of this to make it worthwhile. Because you said, Vicky, that some of the challenges were massive and they were too much. And if the balance is offset and you're not spending enough time on yourselves or your relationships or the things outside of the business, then you've really got to ask yourself, what's the point having you? Because it's a marathon, not a sprint. 18 months, you've made huge progress there, but you guys have got much longer term plans than this, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we had a strong growth kind of mindset at the beginning as well. That's why we went into so many deals at the same time. And it was at the period where it was Q2 of this year, 2021, that all our projects were coming to an end at the same time. So everything was just compounded because we had like 10 properties all finishing at the same time, all needed to be dressed, everything needed to be ordered. We've got to get ready for tenants, we've got to get them refinanced. So it was everything like the perfect storm almost.
There were three different teams as well, Vic.
Three different build teams
and 4 different build teams. So
yeah, 3 different locations, 4 different build teams, 3 different JV partnerships, 10 houses. Yeah, so it kind of created a perfect storm almost of, okay, we need to reevaluate, right, why are we doing this? Because there was points where we were like, let's just sell everything, get the hell out of here.
I think this is probably a really good time to highlight that, Vicky, you're still in a full-time job, aren't you? And it's quite a high-pressure job as well. So I think it's just remarkable what you've been able to do and the amount of pressure that you've been able to sustain and how committed you are to it. And I think you guys are one of the best examples I've ever seen of being totally committed to the cause, being consistent, being persistent. You talk about your challenges at Mastermind, but you never dwell on them, and you never almost just disregard them or bury your head in the sand. You always tackle them head on. And I think that those attributes are so important in business, but particularly the property business. I think you've got to be made of pretty hard stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, to overcome everything, I think we've overcome in the last 12 months, just the pure pressure of everything, and yeah, still in a corporate job at the moment. So yeah, you have to be resilient. I think it shows you how resilient you are, and
Yeah.
it almost proves to yourself, what you can handle. And this is just the beginning for us as well. So it's like if we can do this just at the beginning, whilst also working full time. Bee was studying a master degree, switched careers at the same time as doing all of this. It kind of the future looks bright in terms of what possibilities we have to grow after this.
It really does. And I love sharing stuff like this on the podcast because so many people want to know what it's really like, and this is what it's really like, isn't it? It's predominantly
crazy.
really hard work, unpredictable,
Yeah,
incredibly challenging, stressful,
yeah.
but highly rewarding if you get it right and you enjoy the process. I love that you guys have shared this with us. Let's have a look and let's have a talk about your case study then. Now, this case study isn't quite as complicated as the 7 in a row project, but it's a beautiful HMO. B, we can see some of your incredible design skills in there as well.
Sorry, for that one, it's not me, I have to say, because that
Oh.
one was Jade from BeeSpace who created our BeeVee brand for at that time, and then she implemented that with me talking to her. And after that HMOs, it's all me, but it all started
Okay.
with Jade, so I can't take the credit of doing all of that.
Very honest with you. And Jade strikes again. Obviously, we know Jade really, really well on the podcast. It's one of my business partners and one of our masterminders. So, it's an incredible project. Let's talk a little bit about the numbers then. First of all, it's a 6-bed HMO in Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah.
And you guys paid, and for everyone listening, Vicky and Bee's case studies inside the HMO roadmap, all the pictures before and after, and all of the details. But you guys paid just over 170,000 for this property, and you did a pretty chunky refurb on it. It was 95, so almost £100,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, where did that money go? What did you spend on that property to make it work?
That's the little story of the famous built-in going bust, isn't it?
Is this another challenge then?
Yeah, this one was
Wow.
so this property was already a 4-bed, so the loft had already been converted and was 2 rooms already. And there was already kind of an adequate extension to make a good communal space. So it was actually, of all the projects we've done, it was kind of it should have been the lightest refurb from the beginning, because we go into the loft and we do an extension depending on the layout to get kind of the 6 rooms. But this one we didn't need to, so we thought, great. It was our second purchase that we've ever done. And it was really the first one for professionals. The first one we did was for social housing. So this was really the first professional tenants. And really this is where the design came into it, and we wanted to make it really high spec, and that's why we got Jade in to help us. So it was supposed to be a light refurb. So just changing it from converting the 2 rooms downstairs into bedrooms, and creating the kind of breaking out the kitchen and the bathroom into a bigger communal space to create 6 bedrooms with 5 bathrooms, so 4 en suites, and then the 2 loft rooms just share 1 bathroom.
Fantastic. And the uplift on this is phenomenal. So actually your revaluation was 370,000. So was that a bricks and mortar valuation, or was that a hybrid valuation? Was it based on the commercial value?
I think it was a mixture. It was kind of hybrid really, because we could find bricks and mortar comparables if we look at a 6-bed, not too far from that area, because there's an area of Birmingham where there's quite big properties. So we could get kind of nearish on bricks and mortar as well. So it wasn't just purely commercial. However, they did take into account the rent roll on it to get the reval of 370.
Wow. And were you guys confident of that before going in? This is something we get asked a lot on inside the HMO community. How do you figure out what it's going to be worth at the end? And I always say, look, you can never be totally confident, but you've got to construct a logical path to getting that valuation. Was it where you guys thought it would be? Did you want more? Was it less?
Oh, it
It
was
was
pretty much
actually
bang on.
exactly what we asked for. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was pretty much spot on. I think it also depends on the valuers, as we know, what they had for breakfast that day and who shows
The
up.
weather.
Yeah, the weather. But we had a good value. We created a good relationship with him. He was it was the same one that did the front end valuation. So they could see the difference and the value that we added really through the design. We had good compliments saying it's one of the best ones that they've ever seen. So I think the design and everything that we spent on it as well to do the high level refurb really helped on the back end valuation. But yeah, it's just doing your research, talking to people in the similar area. So it was the first one that we did
Yeah.
in Birmingham for professionals. So we had to talk to a lot of people, other investors, finding out what valves they've got, and then obviously knowing what spec we did, and we kind of that was the number that we thought was good, and we got it.
And you guys outsource the management. You let somebody else take care of
Yeah.
this one, don't you? And I think that's really important to highlight here because a lot of people don't want to get involved in HMO stuff because really it's the management that long term is the big challenge. But actually, you're still netting £1,400 a month here on this project, and that's with your management fees included. And really, if you look at average salaries, that's half of the average UK salary, if not more. It might be significantly more. So it just shows, even with outsourced management, how well HMOs can perform and how effective they can be in generating that recurring cash. Have you found as landlords that it's been challenging to manage, or has having it outsourced pretty much allowed you to resolve all those sorts of issues that might crop up?
Yeah, no, we're not involved. Basically, we're just involved when we need to register the deposit. If there's something really important, then they would ask us. But for us, it's never been. I mean, we never took the choice of are we doing it or not. It would always we're not touching anything with tenants. I would be the worst person to deal with tenants, to be honest. I think I just don't have the patience for it. It's a job. I mean, that's what I say to people all the time. It's if you're a cleaner, you are a cleaner for a reason because you know how to clean a house quickly for the good price and to do it properly. If I'm a cleaner, I can have the same result, but I'll take 3 hours instead of one. So the letting agent, they do the job because they know how to do it. I am not the person to do that. And we've always stacked our deals. So this money is out anyway. So first, we don't feel like we're losing money because we're having a letting agent. Because, this money is gone already. It's part of the deal.
I think again, it comes back round to strengths and weaknesses and your long-term objective. Your strength isn't managing properties or tenants. It's not really what you want to be doing. You've got an objective that relies on you bringing finance in and finding more deals and more partners to work with. So why would you spend your precious time, on an exercise that you can outsource for a few £100 a month? It's a bit of a no-brainer, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And and it's again coming back to our outcome of wanting to, live in France. We can't manage tenants and be on site and fixing things remotely. So it's always been part of our plan to have a management agent. And I think we've got some great management agents in the different areas as well.
Yeah.
I think, we work with two in Birmingham and Freedom Homes in Peterborough, and they're both just excellent at resolving problems, when tenants leave, getting new tenants to come in, just super professional. And again, it's part of the team that we've created that we're so grateful to have great management agents, because it's a part, as well as having a good builder, it's a part that can really affect your cash flow ultimately in your business at the end. If it's not tenanted, if the tenants aren't happy, if they're not managing issues properly, it's going to have a big impact on your cash flow. So I think it's really a key member of our team are the management agents.
I couldn't agree more, Vicky. I think that Really when you finish that refurb and you kind of close the doors on that part of the project, everything else is about good management. It's about taking care of those tenants, taking care of that property. It's about understanding what the market wants, how to speak to them, how to manage inquiries and viewings effectively, how to work quickly, how to be reactive but also proactive. And that is pretty much what HMO management is all about. And actually, that is what will determine the profit over the long term. I've seen some people create incredible projects, and for the first 6 months they perform really well because someone walks into a brand new room or a brand new house, and of course they want to take that room. It's quite easy. But after that, it's very different. As soon as you've got tenants in there living in there, it looks very different to the photographs.
Yeah.
And as soon as those photographs are up or there's other stuff going on, it's much more difficult to manage inquiries. It's much more difficult to get back to people quickly. And chances are somebody not too far away has also created some really good accommodation because it's become more competitive as well. So I think doing all of that and having good management allows you just to stay at the top of your game, which is in our market, in our industry, in the HMO game, that's exactly where we need to be, I think.
Yeah, and I think perhaps what's important as well is to believe in our vision, because we're disrupting some markets as well with what we bring that didn't exist in those areas before. And we're like, oh yeah, don't do that. We're like, no, we're doing it. And we were right, the house been filled in less than 1 month. And it's very clear that actually what we're bringing by disrupting the market is working. So it's also making sure that we got a great relationship with them. But what we want, we still need to push for it as well, even though sometimes, it's with, again, any relationship is to be firm and understanding and explaining why we want this and why it's going to work, even though the person doesn't necessarily believe it. It's important to keep pushing and keep going in all of the relationship. And that's what we did. And I think it worked pretty well.
What advice would you give to anyone? Maybe a few steps behind, maybe not 14 properties, maybe just got a few, or even just getting started. Looking back at the process that you've gone through, the tough times, the stuff that's gone well for you, what advice would you give to anybody right now?
Just do it.
B sounds like a Nike advert.
Yeah, but it's true. I think it's believe in yourself that you can do it. Make sure you really want to do it. That's the first advice I would give. Make sure you know why you're doing this, and just do it, really, because we all got this little voice going there all the time. Yeah, that's too risky. How am I going to do that? It's good to have it, when you got a lion running behind you, but for this, it's fine. There's no death threats. It's really doing it and just believing in yourself, and again, knowing why.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a strong reason why. We've had this from the beginning as well, of the vision of what we want and knowing what we need from the business to be able to do that. So I think having the strong reason, and also just working out what is the worst case scenario, because everyone's kind of what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this. So just work it out. Worst case, if your numbers are at the worst case they can be, can you handle that? Is that a situation that you're going to be able to handle? If it's not, then don't do it. If it is, then go for it. It's the worst case. So, things usually turn out better than we expect. And if you're, conservative on your numbers and things like that, if it's going to be the worst case, can you handle it? If you can, then just go for it.
Yeah, I think I'll come back on this because it's very much, and I think I do this quite consistently as well within our business, is I remove myself from the people in the team and I ask the question, what is it best for the business? Not for us, but what is it best for the business? Is it to make that decision or not? Because the heart can go totally different direction, but actually for the business it's not good. So what do we need to do for the business and not for us?
Yeah, I suppose being able to remove the emotion from investment deals is so important, isn't it? It's very easy to get carried away, fall in love with the property or the potential numbers, but I think that balance of removing the emotion, recognizing what the downside is, and knowing that you could handle a worst case outcome, and then also just having the balls to do it. You need, I think, that fair balance. I think that's a perfect analogy of you guys and working with you guys as well. Really critically analytical approach to what you buy, but actually just get on and just do it attitude. Don't moan, don't complain, just do it. And I think it's a really inspirational message to send to anybody listening to the podcast, whether they've got 1 or 100 properties. I think that those are almost fundamentals to investment and fundamentals to property investment. So thank you so much, guys, for sharing that. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. For anyone who's listening today, guys, where can they find out a little bit more about you? Perhaps if there's any opportunity for them to get involved in your projects or be a lender, how can they contact you?
The best way I think is through social media. So we're on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, BeeVee Property, and we also got our website, beeveeproperty.co.uk. So it's BeeVee, and pretty much on website, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and they should get everything. Or the email address is hello@beeveeproperty.co.uk. So pretty straightforward.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I know that our listeners are going to absolutely love this. So thank you for taking your time, and thank you for coming and joining me on the HMO podcast today.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. It was
Thanks,
really fun.
Andy.